Hey, I'm Tim, and this is episode 1 of the MyFinder podcast series. At MyFinder, we're developing AI assistive tech for the blind and visually impaired. You can download our app for free from the App Store. It uses AI to find and recognize objects, read text, or stream video direct to a volunteer all in real time. It is free, so make sure to download it. The project was born at the University of Oxford, won competitions such as Microsoft Imagine World Cup and Cambridge Entrepreneurs. We're now a social startup. Our aim is to help as many people as possible spread awareness and be at the forefront of assistive tech. Today, we'll be talking with Chris. Chris used to be a biker before losing his sight in 2008. He adapted his love for feeling the road over to the vibrations of woodturning. He is the first ever accredited registered turner to be blind. He's present on TikTok, Instagram and YouTube, and Chris enjoys some 8,000 followers, and he now calls himself the Blind Woodturner. You can visit his website at theblindwoodturner.co.uk, where you can buy some of his work or merch. You can also book him for a remote demonstration of his skills, or even tuition to learn from a registered woodturner. In today's episode, Chris talks about his ambitions for the future.
Yeah, I'd love to be, a well-respected blind artist, inspiring and motivating and teaching as many people as we can.
The risks of his early days working with machinery.
No injuries, I must stress that. These are things purely where I've not had the wood held securely in place on the lathe. It makes a bit of a bid for freedom, so it gets whipped off at speed.
Chris also touches on his excitement for assistive tech.
Very excited for the future. As much stuff as can be developed for the BVI community. Yeah, bring it on.
Finally, Chris offers support and some words of encouragement for those who have lost their sight or perhaps just losing it now.
It's not going to be easy, but you can and will do it. You don't have to do it alone.
But first, what I really wanted to hear from Chris was why woodturning? What does woodturning offer him, and what does his day-to-day look like? Okay, so hello, Chris.
Hello.
How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm great. Just had a couple meetings, but I'm looking forward to getting into this podcast. So the first question I really want to ask you is why woodturning?
Well, it's a question that I get asked regularly, and the answer is because I wanted a vampire steak. I am a huge horror film fan. And I love Halloween, and I used to put on a yard haunt for the kids on Halloween night, and I've always found immense pleasure with that sort of thing. So it was because I wanted a vampire steak as a piece of horror art and a prop for Halloween.
That's excellent.
Yeah. So it was because of a vampire steak.
Do you still have that steak around? Is there any chance we could see it on the camera, or?
Not at the minute. It's in the workshop actually. So, and I'm speaking to you in Nicola's study. So,
that's okay.
Yeah, but I'm sure we could maybe get a photo over to you.
That'd be excellent. Yeah. So, your YouTube channel, you talk about working in auto body repair prior to losing your sight. I'm wondering, have you always enjoyed working with your hands? Is this a natural transition for you?
Yeah. I've never had what you'd call an office job, a desk job, something that I never really gravitated towards or wanted to do. I wanted to work with my hands. Left school and I was a crankshaft engineer, and I've just loved being creative and making things and solving problems. And my father was an engineer and my brother's an architect, and both of them were gifted artists. Well, my brother still is a very gifted artist. And my late father was. So I suppose it's genetically programmed into me to be good with my hands and want to be a creator and a maker. So it wasn't a huge leap of faith for me to attempt it. Others might, differ with that statement and go, well, it's a huge thing to decide to become a woodturner. But for me, it was always being comfortable around machinery and tools. So it wasn't such a huge decision to make.
So this is obviously a medium where you can use a lot of texture and you can really feel what you're working on. So can you find that you can express, I know in art, for example, a lot of creative minds, they like to express what they think and how they're feeling in their work. Is there a way you can get that into your objects and items that you're wood turning?
Yeah, there's There's a lot of work that I do where it incorporates texturing or engraving or carving. And for me to turn just a plain, let's say, a walnut bowl, even though it would be nice and warm and, it is a sensory thing in its own right, I like to take it to the next level and incorporate texture and engraving so it becomes hugely sensory. And, there's lots of interest on the piece, so you can feel the areas where I've textured and used different tools to get different types of texture. So, yeah, I can turn, a piece on the lathe into something that's, really, really interesting. And, it's especially for people with visual impairments or blindness, it becomes an absolute sort of like feast for the senses, really.
Yeah.
I've had a blind student, totally blind, and over the course of the weekend, I took him through the basics, and he ended up turning a beautiful tea light holder at the end. So I have taught people with complete blindness, and I hope to have more. I've started a project with a dear friend who's not visually impaired. He has cerebral palsy. So we've started a project where we want to encourage more people with a physical disability and hopefully a lot of people with visual impairments to step out of their comfort zone and, maybe consider taking up wood turning, because it's an amazing art form. And, we've just taken the initial steps of getting that project up and running. But, I'd love to have more visually impaired students.
You're really talking about opening up the community to opening up the craft to the community and getting more people interested, getting it accessible. So you're really a positive kind of leader for this. But I want to get to know a little bit more about your day to day. I want to establish the setting, how you're working, how you're maneuvering about. You're talking earlier about the dangers of being in the workshop, I suppose, the workshop. So yeah. What is your day-to-day routine as a woodturner, first of all, is what I would like to know.
Well, the first thing that I like to do is put the kettle on. That's probably the most important thing, and take a nice cup of tea out there. And then I go in, make sure the heater's on at this time of year, make sure I'm comfortable and warm. Anything that would detract my train of thought, I need to be concentrating on what I'm doing, so I can process mental imagery and things like that. So any distractions, I'm not a fan of. So yeah, like to be nice and warm, have a warm drink. I put music on as well whilst I'm getting set up. Listen to music on the radio in there. So it's all about making sure that the wood is prepared and at hand, everything's safe. Obviously, I don't want any trip hazards on the floor. Especially, with being blind. I do trail around the workshop, but in the early days of being blind, I had my arms stretched out in front of me like a zombie, trying to trail. But now I just trail with my foot, and I give a tap around as I'm shuffling around the workshop. But like many blind people, you get this amazing sense of where things are, and where everything is, and a place for everything and everything in its place. It's a real sort of like mantra for me. So I need the workshop clean, tidy, ready to start, got the music, got the cup of tea, just acclimatise myself with the machinery, get set up, and, I'm ready to go. Technology does play a part, assistive technology in my wood turning. I have talking tape measure, I have a pen friend, so I have, the little labels attached to different bottles that might have a different colour in. So I can do that without needing help from Nicola, my wife, because Nicola's very busy. She's got her own projects and business. So I need to be able to get on with things myself and only ask for help if I really need it. I like to be sort of like self-managed as far as possible to keep that sense of independence strong within me. So Yeah, and then I get on with the project, and it's start, stop, feel, start, stop, feel. I'm just working all from mental imagery, and as the project progresses on the lathe, I'm stopping, feeling, realizing, and assessing where I might need to just change the shape or the form, what needs addressing. I'm continually listening out for any danger sounds, because wood is a natural organic material. It can have splits and defects deep embedded into the wood. So I listen out for any warning signs that might alert me to the fact that the wood is becoming unstable. And, it's spinning around at up to 3,500 RPM on a very powerful machine. So got to have your wits about you. But I love that challenge as well, that part of the challenge. Again, it's like riding a fast, powerful motorcycle. It's being at one with your machine, being aware of your surroundings and your environment. And just because I can't see doesn't mean that, I'm not in tune, probably more so than I was when I could see, in tune with my environment and my surroundings. I use the same processes, same routines, day in, day out, hour in, hour out. And that assures me of, repeatability, consistency, safety. Like a lot of blind people, routine is the key. That, and it's very, very mentally tiring. Not so much physically, but mentally tiring. But again, I'm doing what I love, and you have to put the hard work in to get the results, same as anything in life.
If you're listening to music while you're doing this and you're feeling the wood, do you associate certain woods with certain music? So if you're working on like a really hard piece of wood that's very lots of vibration, lots of resistance, it fights back, do you listen to some heavier music, or is it just popping the radio on and listening to some?
You're absolutely spot on. I have different music that I listen to. I'm a teenager of the 1980s, so I still love everything from the 1980s, all the new Depeche Mode, Gary Newman, and lots of acts like that. And also, I'm a huge heavy metal fan, so it's a mixture of heavy metal and 80s synth pop, really, and with the odd bit of anthemic music thrown in. So there's a couple of acts that I listen to repeatedly, but heavy metal in 1980s. And depending on the project, if I'm going, I would listen to some maybe warrior style music, either symphonic metal, or maybe a bit of Gregorian chant as well. So I mix it up with sort of like different genres of music and different styles that feeds into my mental imagery. We're descended from the Vikings. We've done the whole DNA thing, and I'm big into the Viking thing and heavy metal, and it all just works to my advantage. Music and wood turning for me are inseparable.
Thought surely you must have like a lot of, imagine it takes a long time to do some of this work, especially if you're stopping and feeling and getting some feedback and doing it again. You need a lot of music. So
we have Amazon Alexas all over the place, and I've got one in the workshop connected to a speaker as well. So I can just ask Alexa to play whatever I want, or play an album from whoever I want, and just non-stop music all day. I can't live without music. It's such an important part of my life, and even more so now that I'm blind. I also have incense sticks burning in the workshop as well. So that feeds into the creativity. It's quite a weird and funky place, I suppose, my workshop.
So it's like almost, it is like another world that you go into, and then it really brings you back to the roots, I suppose, and really gets you in the zone and feeling one with everything as well. You've got all the smells of the natural woods, and that sounds really good. Okay, so I've seen some of your latest work, and it does look very good. It does. I really like it's pretty amazing. I'm not going to lie. And I told a few people as well. I was interviewing you, and we were talking, having a talk here, and they were fascinated. And the work is really good. But what about the early days? I want to know, what about when you just got into it, you were just starting, we talked about how you're a bit of a groundbreaker here. There's not too many people that you could maybe look up to for that. So what was the early work like, and the stake as well that you made?
Well, yeah, the steak I'm still very happy with, although I can do something a lot more elaborate now. It's quite simple, but still happy with it. In the early days, I had stuff flying off the lathe probably every other day. And it's just, lack of knowledge and understanding. And, I did have the odd mishap. No injuries, I must stress that. I've never been injured in the workshop. These are things purely where I've not had the wood held securely in place on the lathe. So it makes a bit of a bid for freedom, so it gets whipped off at speed.
Wow.
So you just have to, well, in the early days, I'd have to stop, sit down, take a deep breath and think, what just happened? Why did that, come away from the lathe? And, maybe go and listen to another video on YouTube. Bearing in mind, I'm self-taught and had never had any professional classes or done it at school. That had all been phased out. So in the early days, yeah, it was hair raising from time to time.
You just feel a giant piece of wood just rush past your face. Is there not a shield you can use or anything? Just get
yeah. Wear a face shield all the time. And I have had people say to me, "You're already blind, so why do you bother with a face shield?" Well, because I can still feel with my eyes.
Yeah.
I don't want a broken nose or a broken cheekbone or a piece of wood sticking out the front of my forehead. Thank you very much.
Self-taught, so that's amazing. So was there any specific people online that you really found you could translate what they were saying to feel?
Yeah, there was a couple of really proficient YouTubers, cited, I must say, who I got in touch with them and said, I'm a blind guy. I'm just starting out in wood turning, but, you're doing a lot of videos where it's just a music soundtrack. Could you do a video and describe more to me what's going on, please? And they did. And, just to drop a couple of names, Mike Walton, Martin Saban-Smith, they did exactly what they said they did and do, and they did start doing some descriptive videos just for me and hopefully others that were interested that were visually impaired. But my main sort of like wood turning hero is a guy called Nick Agar, and he's done amazing wood turning art for the royal family and Aspreys, the royal jewelers in London. They have his work. Wow. And I was able to have a day. I'd been turning for a few years already, but Nicola paid for me to have a day's tuition with him in Devon. And he taught me how to power carve electric power tools to carve texture and detail into work. And he really did take me on to the next level.
If you keep going, it'll be a big positive role model for the community for sure. So
yeah, and that's why we do it. That's the bottom line for everything, to inspire and motivate. I would have quite easily, just done my own thing in my own workshop and with the odd video, but you have to put your head above the parapet and get out there and show people, really what they are capable of. Disabled or able-bodied, it doesn't matter. Get off your backside, go and do something you never thought you'd do, and start living life and pushing the envelope as often as you can.
So you are a professional, you are making a living here as well. It's definitely, you'd call yourself in that regard self-sufficient, independence, resilience, those kind of traits. So really pushing here, and you want to get other people on. Is there one piece that you found particularly difficult and you're really proud of, and that's the piece that you think, I've really pushed against the resistance I had here, and this is my work that I can show for it?
There's a Viking bowl that I did as a homage to Nick Agar that I'm really happy with, and I've done some really nice goblets with lids and finials, and I've incorporated colouring and texturing. So those sort of things, I have to pinch even myself and go, well, that is absolutely amazing, and I can't believe I've done that, but I'm so glad that I have. And it's almost a pat on my back from myself. But it's good to do that because it keeps you driving forward. And if you were continually doubting yourself and having bad days with it, you would be tempted to maybe give it up. You need these moments of, oh my Lord, I can't believe I've done that. I can't believe I've pulled that off.
So you've mentioned moving. So you've mentioned moving to a new environment recently. What's it been like as someone who's visually impaired to be in like a new town? Or I'd imagine your workshop remains roughly the same.
Well, workshop aside, it has been tricky for me. The way we did it until the house was built, because it was brand new. It is brand new. We'd rented a couple of holiday rentals in the Derbyshire countryside. So we'd moved 4 times in total, and I did have the odd day of anxiety. I fell down the stairs at one property, not being, used to my surroundings. So I do suffer with anxiety, and that's another story. But yeah, it was tricky for me, and I had to dig deep. But we're here now. It was worth it. I'm set up in the workshop. So again, dig deep and believe in yourself. And of course, with support from, my wife and my amazing guide dog, Bamba, you begin to, again, get back on track. But it wasn't easy. And a couple of days I wasn't in a good place mentally. But that's all behind me now.
So you mentioned assistive tech. You mentioned using, was it Amazon? You use Alexa, do you? And have
yeah, and screen readers on my laptops, obviously, and I've got Alexa Fire TV for the telly, so it's voice activated remote control and audio description maxed out on everything, and iPhone with everything maxed out for the visually impaired community. So yeah, pen friend, talking tape measure, talking kitchen scales and measuring jug in the kitchen, liquid level indicator. There's a lot of tech knocking around in our house, that's for sure, but it's necessary.
We do really want to help at MyFinder, and we are trying to introduce AI. It's quite young, it's quite early, it's developing, but is that something you're excited for? You think AI could really help, just from what you've seen, help the community?
Oh yeah, no, very excited for the future. As much stuff as can be developed for the BVI community, yeah, bring it on. Anything that can make our lives easier and more independent. Yeah, can't wait. And I love the fact that, more and more stuff you can just either click one button or ask it to do something, and we've got the information we need real time. It's brilliant. It's a great time.
Where do you want to go with your wood turning? So is there going to be like a private collection, or is it going to be, are you going to try and really get into, get it as your art form and try and get as successful as possible as an artist there? Are we going to see some premium collectible pieces from you?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'd love to have a gallery exhibition. That'd be really cool. I'd love to be, a respected and liked blind artist. And, we've made great progress in that respect. But, there's never, in my opinion, never such thing as an expert. And it's always pushing the boundaries, bringing out new designs. And it's, about, getting paid the amount that I think my work demands. And it can be depressing sometimes when you're doing you're at a fair or something like that with a table of your wares, and people are going and saying, oh, that's amazing, and oh, I love wood, and oh, wow, that's incredible, how much is it? And then they go, oh, that's dear, and walk off, and you're thinking, if only you knew how much time and effort that took to make that piece. But yeah, I'd love to be, a well-respected, very successful blind artist, still inspiring and motivating and teaching, as many people as we can, to show them, that there is a future after such a traumatic event, as, especially with disabilities. So, yeah, there's quite a few things, but yeah, a gallery exhibition and more money wouldn't go amiss.
Because you're not just making 20 of the same bowls here and wheeling them down to a thing. Each individual piece is a piece of art, and it's all lots of hours put in.
Yeah, I'm not a production turner. If you want a production turner, let's say you want 50 stair spindles for, your house renovation, there are production turners that can do that. There's no blind production turners. And that's not to say that I couldn't do it, but it would take such a long time. The cost would be prohibitive, so I mainly concentrate on one-off bespoke items, that are creative, expressive, and really coming from deep inside my heart and my soul and my mind. So yeah, I'm a wood turning artist, that's for sure.
You've talked a lot about how people can remain optimistic and keep doing things, new things, new experiences, independent, all these really good things. But if there's one thing you want to say to people who are just losing their sight, maybe, or just now, or have just lost it, or particularly younger people, is there any one thing you could say, this is it, this is the approach that you need to take?
I would say it's not going to be easy, but you can and will do it. You don't have to do it alone. Ask for help. There's no shame in asking for help, and stick with it. You will get there. It's not the end. It's just a different path you're on. And there'll be as many in the early days. There will be many times where you'll be frustrated, but as you progress, soon the wonderful, glorious days filled with love and fun, will far outweigh the bad days. So stick with it. Don't do it alone. Never, ever give up.
I feel we can learn a lot from Chris. He really does give a good, positive message of support to anyone who might be suffering from vision loss or anyone who is just starting to lose their sight. Again, if you want to see some more information about Chris, do visit his website at theblindwoodturner.co.uk or check his YouTube or TikTok. You can also find Chris on Instagram at blindwoodturner. Would also love if you could check our app out on the App Store. It's MyFinder on the App Store, or you can check our website, myfinder.com. That's 2 R's, so myfinder.com. It's 2 R's. It's free to download, and we'd love both volunteers and users. Thanks, I'll talk to you next time, and this has been episode 1 of the MyFinder podcast.